WNST, Towson, Baltimore, and WNST.net. It is so busy around here. I feel like I need a remote control for all the things I want to talk about. I mean, I've shoehorned some Capitals in here, a little bit of Wizards in here. Obviously, I mean, we've almost like written off the national championship on Monday night, but we're about to talk about the North Carolina victory at the end over Gonzaga. But, I mean, opening day, sort of that, along with the draft, along with the Liars lunch, it takes up all the oxygen in the room here. Robert Kennedy, however, has two things to talk about with us. First off, he does golf for a living. He's one of our good pals and, of course, covers local college basketball around here. A lot going on even in college basketball. You can follow him at CAA_beat out on Twitter, and he's been a great associate of ours here at WNST for a long time. What's going on, man? I mean, one season ends and the next one begins, right? Basketball ends on Monday, and for most of the world, golf began on Tuesday when it's 75 degrees, or it begins on Thursday when they start running around and there's azaleas and Jim Nance is whispering. And I mean, this is a big week around here if you hit the little white dimple ball, right, Robert?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, it's the official start of the season for most of those of us here on the East Coast and Northeast. You know, that it wasn't a long, hard winter this year, but it was still winter nonetheless. But yeah, when you start seeing a little of the cherry blossoms peek through, and like you said, you hear the whispers of Jim Nance. Pretty much he puts a wrap on the championship game on Monday night, and then he heads off to Augusta, to really start the golf season. So yeah, it's a great week and a great time of year for people that love golf and basketball, and I happen to love both.
Yeah, and baseball, and I love baseball. So this is a good baseball week, and people are trying to talk me into growing a playoff beard next week, Rob. I don't think that's going to happen at this point. I'm getting too old and too ugly for that nonsense. But from a basketball perspective, Carolina, raises the trophy after last year having this heartbreak. I mean, I'm okay with it. I don't hate Carolina in the same way that maybe I did 30 years ago when they used to just kick Lefty's ass, and then after that, Gary Williams and the Dean Dome. And, I mean, they named the Dome after the dude that let him coach in it for 15 years. I mean, we talk about the Blue Bloods or the Blue Bloods or the Blue Bloods, and then there's Carolina, right?
Absolutely. And, yeah, I come to this area. I'm not born in the Maryland D.C. area, so I didn't grow up with the hate for the Duke Carolinas, and actually spent a lot of time living. I spent a lot of time living in Carolina, so and had some good friends that went there, some good friends that went to Duke. So
hold on a second. But when you're in Carolina, there's like no split allegiance at all. If you're State, you hate all of them. If you're Wake, you hate all of them, right? I mean, if you're a Greensboro guy or wherever, you got a lot of weird. I always wonder, like, how do you become a Mets or a Yankees or a Jets or a Giants geographically? In North Carolina, for basketball, it's even crazier than Auburn and Alabama, right?
It really is. It's pretty much like a birthright. You're born into it, or in my case, if you move there, your boss pretty much tells you right off the bat, all right, you pick one, Carolina or Duke. There's no fence sitting, and you pretty much ask your boss who signs the check which school he went to, and that's who you put your allegiance towards. So
well, a lot of happy people at Spanky's on Monday night and Tuesday morning, right?
Exactly. Yeah. So it's but it was your Carolina, against the Gonzaga, the little team that could for years and years, made 19 straight years, but never really got past the Sweet 16, Elite Eight. Had never been to the Final Four, and a lot of people thought this would be the year. I personally thought Carolina would handle them pretty easily, and it was probably one of the more unwatchable, national championship games I've seen in many years.
Dude, it's a disgrace that they play these games in those airplane hangars on a court that's not suitable. I don't know whether it's humidity. I don't know whether it's the wind blowing in those domes running around, but it makes for horrific basket. It's disgraceful that they play the biggest games of the year in that fashion, in my opinion.
It really is. I mean, you spend all season playing games in, your little 5,000 or 10,000 seat gyms. For the big tourneys, you go to 18,000, 19,000 arenas, the NBA, and that's fine. I mean, as we've spoke before, I was down at the Big Ten tourney, at the Verizon Center, and that was a phenomenal environment. For 19,000 people, it was just perfect. I mean, the fact that they played, like you said, it's a great way to describe it, in these airplane hangars where you'd see the wide shots of the stadium, and you wonder, those people up in the upper deck, they need binoculars just to see the floor.
I tell people it's the worst event to go to because even if you have a good seat, you have a good seat on the 30-yard line of a football seat. You don't feel close, even if you're close. There's nobody close to the court. All the things you love about college basketball, they suck out of it along with all the money at the end. And by the way, I have Gianna Taboni coming on later on this week. She did a piece on Vice last week on HBO about players getting paid and pay for play. And that's the other part that really makes me itch, dude, is watching these kids run around, these 20 kids run around making $1 billion for everybody but themselves. I mean, this kid's from Gonzaga, too. The whole thing weirds me out a little bit. It really smacks of a greed that we can only find in America, quite frankly.
It does. And, I probably will love college basketball to the end, but I've talked to some other friends and also other members of the media in the last couple of weeks, and, they've expressed a lot of the same sentiments you have, and they say, I've never been a huge NBA fan, but they just said, they've gone to the NBA now. The NBA playoffs are so much more exciting to them than, the tournament as a whole this year was just, it was okay. There were a couple of good games, but, there weren't the classic buzzer beaters. The refs pretty much just took the game out of the, players. They fight all season to get there, and the refs last night on both sides, you can, cry either way. There were bad calls, and it just, like you said, the dollars that's behind the NCAA.
Well, the money's bigger, right? Everything's bigger, Robert, right? I mean, literally every part of this, the salaries for the coaches, the AAU, the nonsense, all the chicanery and all the sanctions and all the death penalties and all of that is still there. The quality of play kind of stinks. The engagement level, because the players don't stay, kind of stinks. We all know all the money getting slushed around and all the shoes and all, there is, and the players don't get paid, and all of it kind of makes you itch. But more than anything, to watch that game on Monday night and to compare that on the same day when Patrick Ewing takes the Georgetown job, right, to any of those Patrick Ewing teams or the Ralph Sampson teams or James Worthy and Perkins and Jordan or Keith Smart, or to go back and see the Marquette, and I saw the heartwarming stories about Marquette, now McGuire's teams, or any of the, not to mention the John Wooden teams, which, when we talk about Wooden, I usually take a 2-second silence just to pay respect to the man.
Right.
But, for even the cheating teams of Boeheim up in Syracuse or the Valvano, bunch of cheaters in the 400 SAT guys, and that's 35 years ago now, the game's not as good. Nothing about it is as good as it used to be, and I hate to be the get off my lawn guy, but Monday night's national championship's not making people say, oh, that's what I love about college basketball, because it stunk.
Yeah, no, I can't add anything other than amen. I mean, it really was just a horrible watch, and it wasn't anything that was going to, like you said, say this is what the game's about. It's, the one and dones, there's been a lot of conversation, what they've done to the game, and, that's the story now. That's the way it is. Coaches, I mean, the Carolina team was an exception to that. They, for the most part, haven't had one and dones. They've had the 4-year stars that have stayed. Dude,
it's hard to hate Roy Williams. I mean, really is. I mean, and he's not going to beat us anymore, right? I mean, Maryland's not going to play them, once every 8 years, 10 years, whatever it's going to be. I know one thing: their fans are engaged, but it's all when you get a Goliath and a David together. I mean, come on. I mean, you want kids. Everybody in America was rooting for Gonzaga, right? I guess, right?
That's what I heard. I mean, yeah, I heard a lot of that. The people I spoke to, the other radio I listened to, and things I read, everyone was pulling for Gonzaga.
Hard to hate the big Polish kid that looks like a professional wrestler, right?
Yeah, he had a rough night as well. As a lot of them did, but it was. But like you said, it's. It is what it is, and but what? Come next November 14th, I'll be right back there ready for opening night of college season again, and there's a lot to happen between now and then.
You can follow Robert Kennedy at CAA_beat out on Twitter. He was covering the CAA, now covering the Big Ten. He loves basketball, and more than that, from anybody you could tell from their Twitter these days, I know how much you love golf. You work in the golf sales world as an industry, and it's Masters Week, so I wanted to give you a little chance to stretch out and do a little golf with us here this week. Anytime Tiger Woods isn't there, that it affects things. But then you see the picture what Tiger Woods looks like. He's not 21 anymore, right? Like, we're not putting the genie back in the bottle here. It's sort of on the Kobe Bryant end of this of, he's not going to be playing a whole lot more Masters and a whole lot more majors, and any thought that he's going to be staring down Jack anytime soon, that's sort of faded with all that enthusiasm from what is now 10, 12, 15 years removed, right?
Absolutely. It's hard to believe. He's probably a lot closer to hitting the ceremonial tee shot than he is to winning again. He looks like an old man now. And I'm not being critical of his looks as someone who fights the loss of hair battle myself. He's 20 years ago. That dominant kid that walked on the stage and blew away the field, and now he's a 41-year-old man 40 years old that can is lucky to get on the course and get through 18 holes. It's just, it's hard to believe how long it's when he was winning all those Masters back in the early 2000s, and he and Phil, it seemed like every other year were trading back and forth. It's hard to believe it's been 12 years, since he's probably won his last one, and 20 since that first one. A lot's happened since then, and all that said, when he is in the field, people still tune in and watch. The fringe golf fans do, the Tiger lovers do, the people that just because something might happen special with him, especially there at Augusta of all places. I mean, it's as short as a couple of years ago, he was in the mix going into the back nine, and but it's without him being there, it's turned over to the new young guns. The group of the Dustin Johnsons, the Rory McIlroys, Jason Days, Jordan Spieth, and I think the game's in really good hands with those four, and
it really does have great spokespeople, right? I mean, they're not dynamic the way Tiger was, and they're certainly not dominant in that way, right? I mean, the thing that made Tiger Woods special was everything, right? The Thai part, the black part, the Stanford part, the fact that he 12-shot leads on Saturday afternoon at that was everything about him is something that golf's sort of waiting on, right? You sell golf for a living. You want one of these guys to be bombastic in some way, maybe not the John Daly way or the Payne Stewart way, but, these are great golfers. They all seem like likable guys, you know what I mean, for the most part. Good sportsmanship. Nobody's throwing their clubs into the water, acting a fool, playing the McEnroe. But I don't know what's going to reinvigorate golf in that way. I don't know what that's going to be.
Now you're right. They, all four of them, phenomenal players. All four of them, good guys. They're not in the headlines for the wrong reasons. But none of them have the charisma and the swag that Tiger did. The one that's closest to that is probably Rory McIlroy when he's playing well. But he'll go through stretches where, mostly due to his putting, where he just kind of shoots himself out of a round, and it's happened to him. I mean, we all saw the disaster, in 2011 of him where he, stepped on the 10th tee with a 4-shot lead, and you thought here we go, it's going to be his coordination. He's going to win this by 6-7 shots going away, and then he decided to hit one up by the cabins that no one even knew were there on the 10th hole.
Yeah, but people, that's what makes this, for Greg Norman to have done that a dozen times, you know what I mean? That's right. What makes you get involved, and you need to root for or against, right? I mean, I met Tiger Woods at a Hootie and the Blowfish concert on New Year's Eve, 1996. I'm not making this up. At the Hard Rock, at the joint at the Hard Rock, and he was such a jerk to me that I rooted against him right on until his hot Swedish wife put the golf club through the windshield, Like, I hated him, and I rooted against him at Valhalla. I rooted against him, in the UK. I rooted against him in Augusta, at Pebble Beach, wherever he was, I rooted against Tiger Woods. Now, I lost more than I won, but it was the thing that engaged me was you got to have a Hulk Hogan or a Bob Backlund or an Andre the Giant or a Ric Flair, right? I mean, that's where we are in the modern era. You got to love them or hate them in some way. Respecting four guys, I mean, that's okay for you for a golf guy, but it doesn't recruit a guy like me. I need some professional wrestling in some way, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, there's no villain. You're right. If it came down to those four, on Sunday afternoon going down the mix, you're going to have everyone cheering for their guy, but there's not going to be someone that everyone's rooting against. There's not going to be the guy if he hits it into the water where, you're going to jump up off the couch and cheer,
See, you're really not rooting for another Tiger Woods that comes down from Mars and is 12 shots better than everyone. I think anybody that likes golf's rooting for, well, let's get the 4 or 5 best guys all on the course, all a shot apart on 15, and let's see what happens. And let's have 3 of them. That's what you root for, I guess, on a Sunday afternoon. It's not we want to see the greatest performance ever. I think we've seen that, right? Or we're going to see somebody win for the 8th time or the 10th. We've seen that. All you want to see is the shadows coming down and like a real foot race amongst several guys, right?
Yeah, absolutely. That's what everyone wants to see, and that's what everyone hopes for. They were back in the day. They hoped it was Tiger and Phil, having that shootout down the stretch, or Tiger and the bad guy maybe like VK Singh that was there a couple of years against them, where you'd root against them and root for Tiger. But yeah, given the lack of the villain, as you say, you've got these 4 good guys. You're hoping for a shootout on Sunday afternoon. There is not one dominant player. I mean, every one of them is good in their own right. The closest one, I guess you'd have to say, that could be dominant, and that's more of this month type thing, is Dustin Johnson coming off his 3 straight wins and hits the ball farther than anyone, and he's 6'5" and looks like he could have played in the Carolina game last night. Probably the best athlete of the bunch, but all it takes is for Jordan Spieth to win this week, and then everyone will be back on his bandwagon, or Bubba Watson to win his 3rd in 5 years. So there is no dominant one. There's a bunch of the one thing I guess you don't hope happen is nothing against the little lesser players, but the Danny Willett last year, who kind of just found himself in the winner's chair when Jordan Spieth collapsed. Granted, Willett did pull off a couple good shots down the stretch, made a birdie on 16 to kind of clinch it, but no one was sitting there thrilled that they had picked Danny Willett in their pool. Probably at the end. So,
who do you want in your pool? Who's going to win a tournament this weekend, Robert Kennedy?
If I have to pick one, I'm going with Dustin Johnson. I'm riding the hot hand. He has the one weakness that he'd had in his game was putting. And that's no longer a major flaw. He's proven it, over the last several weeks and actually over the last year and a half. He'll still miss one now and then. But the other thing that he's really eliminated is the big mental mistake. People used to wonder about his mental, toughness and strength. He had episodes at the hazard that wasn't a hazard at Whistling Straits a few years back in the PGA Championship. He had the 2-iron, he shanked out of bounds at the British Open one year when he was leading on the 15th hole. The Pebble Beach meltdown in 2010. He hasn't done that. He didn't do that last year at the U.S. Open. He actually did the opposite of that. They posed they came up to him on the 12th hole, said, you may or may not have a penalty, after the round. We'll let you know. When he's sitting there, the 12th hole with a 1-stroke lead, and in the past, you have to think that would have rattled him, but all he did is go out and make birdies and, made it a 3-shot cushion where that 1 stroke didn't matter. So,
by the way, I never see women, on SportsCenter anymore until, someone emails in that someone cheated on the card. That's an unbelievable story over the weekend, right? Like, while we're talking about, we're going to figure out whether you're going to be penalized or not. That was a crazy story.
It really was, and it's something. I mean, that's one of the things you get 2 camps on that. You get your golf loyalists who say, "Oh, that's that's the rule. A rule is a rule. You've got to call it." And but in what other sport is some guy sitting on his couch and calling in the NFL office and saying that he noticed the holding penalty back in the first quarter, and that they're going to come assess the 15 yards in the fourth quarter?
Or even worse than that, which would be, well, he didn't wear his uniform the right way. He was ineligible, right? You know what I mean? He had his shoelaces tied the wrong way. It wasn't the code, right?
Yeah,
literally
stuff like that about golf that just drives me crazy. They talk about declining rounds, and there aren't, depending on who you talk to, depending upon what area of the country you're in.
Depending on the weather,
and the weather, and the there's all sorts of outside factors. But the truth is, I mean, it's going well, it's going strong. You'll hear the naysayers just like you do with anything, but things like that don't help. Especially in the women's sport, which struggles for attention anyway. I mean, the first major of the year, So it's not the story that
it's almost like with hockey, people don't notice it until there's a fight and somebody dies, and then all of a sudden, hockey makes the headlines. I mean, women's golf, I didn't even know it existed. I haven't heard about it in years. And the one time you hear about it, it's this really pretty girl breaking down on the course who won the event but lost the event. I mean, that's. You're right. That doesn't inspire me to get my 12-year-old daughter out on the course, right?
No, it sure doesn't. It's just it's something that's fought, and with the advent of the HD TV, it's gotten worse, and that's a rule that has to change sooner or later. I mean, what's so difficult to say that we have officials on site to decide it. Thank you. Watch at home, enjoy it. Have your beverages, but leave the officiating to those of us actually at the event.
Have you been to Augusta, by the way? I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I'm saying set some sort of time frame.
Right.
You've got people that 24 hours later. I mean, there's no officials that could have watched that or declared it an hour or two. Set an hour after the match is finished or 2 hours afterwards. If it's not brought to light by then, you move on.
He is Robert Kennedy. He's CAA_beat. Have you been to Augusta? I have a standing invitation from a special friend to go down there kind of sort of whenever I want. I was going to go last year. I had flights. My wife wasn't well enough to make it. The invitation wasn't mine. It was actually for her. She likes azaleas. I actually I backed out of a chance to go broadcast from there back in 2000, back in the Tiger Woods era. And I actually did it out of deference to a partner of mine who worked at the company at Sporting News, where I said, it means more to you than it means to me. You go, and I still have never been there. And I have cousins that live in Augusta. Literally, I could crash on their couch. They've lived there, my whole life. I've been to Augusta 2 or 3 times as a boy, but I've never been to Augusta.
Right. Yeah. No, I've never been. I did have an opportunity a couple of years ago. I have a friend who caddies on the tour, and he asked me, why don't you come down this week, get you the pass and everything. And it was just like you said, just the time it wasn't right. And, I haven't had the chance since then. And, it's one of these years I will, do it. The people I've talked to that have been there say it's, nothing like that you've imagined. The TV, even the 4K and the HD just doesn't do it justice until you're there and you see how hilly and green and everything and how just enormous everything is in person. So,
and how cheap the food is. I always hear that the food's cheap.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, I saw some on Twitter yesterday. They showed a shot of the concessions price list, and it says you have $12 here. What would you buy? And you were able to buy like 2 sandwiches, a couple beers, and an ice cream cone or something for $12.
Well, that's after you pay $1,000 for the badge to get in.
Exactly.
Robert Kennedy, tell everybody what you do for a living, because you do golf for a living, but I know you through basketball.
Yeah, I do. I work for Compass Point Golf Course out here in Anne Arundel County, and I do the tournament director. So I go out and solicit the outings, the charity outings that people. That's a big business part of golf as far as raising funds for different organizations and events and causes. And they come out and they bring all their clients, friends, and fundraisers out, and they have a good day on the golf course. And we host them, have them, they raise some money, we get some business.
We're familiar with that. We've done that a lot around here. I bet we've raised hundreds of thousands of dollars on golf courses over the course of time. I'm not a golfer, right? But I have driven many a cart. I've hit many a tee shot, and I play a mean game of putt-putt. I'll kick your ass in Ocean City at Old Golf.
It's funny. We see these. I've played in a lot of these through the years, and we have them. You don't have to be, you get the guy that can come out once a year, and he can't get a tee shot, off the ground, but you know what? He makes that 125-foot putt for birdie and a scramble, and he feels like he's contributed to the team. So that's what's great about it. You don't have to be a great golfer to play in these type scrambles and everything. You hopefully have your one ringer that's going to hit it 250, 300 yards, and everyone gets on the green, and everyone has a chance to make that putt, regardless of how good they are.
All right, I'll come down to Compass Point. I'll hit some tee shots with you one day. He is CAA_beat, BEAT. He is Robert Kennedy, our pal. Great having you on, man. A little basketball. I didn't even hit you up on opening day. We'll talk hockey and baseball and football with you next week, all right?
There was just so much going on, so little time to get to it all, right?
And not to mention, I got people around here that were WrestleMania. I didn't even bring that into the conversation, but I got my red underwear on right now. I'm ready for this whole Caps thing. I'm ready for this. Whatever's going to happen, whatever the hockey gods and Lord Stanley decides, I'm going to be good with, but I'm going to try to have some fun with it over the next couple weeks.
Awesome. I'll be watching it all right along with you.
All right, man. I'll be watching golf on Sunday afternoon as well. Good to have you on, Bob. See you later.
All right, Nestor.
You got it. Robert Kennedy, CAA_beats, down at Compass Point joining us. You can find me out in the Buy a Toyota Audio Vault 24 hours a day from anywhere in the world on your mobile device by downloading the TuneIn radio app. We do come in crystal clear from anywhere in the world. The morning newspaper ships to your email inbox 7 a.m. It's free and easy and all powered up by Planet Fitness and PlanetFitness.com, where it's still $10 a month to get in the best shape of your life. Last but never least, breaking news happens first on the WNST Tech Service. It's all brought to you by Coons Ford of Security Boulevard, and Dennis will be here on Thursday, hitting them straight, getting you ready for the Masters and the weekend, and UFC and MMA and anything else that's happening out there. Dennis has you covered, the SSV on WNST and our WNST Tech Service. Don't forget our London trip up running, and we've got space for you on that. We got a $100 discount for anybody that emails me that's been on a trip before, nasty@WNST.net. Waiting on Green Bay and Nashville. We're going to get that stuff together for you as well when the schedule comes out 2 weeks from now. Let's see. Oh, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, Snapchat, Instagram, streaming live on our Facebook Live, as well as our YouTube WNSTV channel. We are WNST.net, AM 1570, and WNST Towson, Baltimore, and we never stop talking Baltimore sports.